my DNA.
Well, here we are again. We've gone to 2049 to fight the Master, we've gone to the far future to face the Cybermen, and we've even gone to Atlantis to do battle with the Daleks. But the ending of Season 3 has changed everything, with a new Doctor arriving and the return of his deadliest enemy. But now we've arrived at the penultimate chapter in this series, where the newly regenerated Doctor, played by Matt Ryan, with Rose Ayling Ellis' Daisy Warren and the android companion Kamelion in tow, all head to Unit Tower in the modern day to take on another long-forgotten enemy banished to the depths of the ocean. And in doing so, the Doctor is forced to form a pact with another former enemy to help save the day. Now, in previous entries of this series, I have attempted to tell my own story within the Whoniverse, keeping things to a more grounded level, so to speak. In Season 1 we only had a handful of well-known characters from the Doctor Who world, with the only recognisable characters being the Doctor and his enemy. We had the Master in Season 1 posing as a wealthy technology entrepreneur, and then in Season 2 we had the remnants of the Cybermen in the vast war-torn future, and then in our previous entry to this series we had the Daleks seeking out the lost city of Atlantis, on the hunt for technology that they could use to repair the Dalek Empire after the events of Series 9. This time, however, I'm going for something a little more recognisable to long-term fans of the show. We're headed to the modern-day Earth, where the Doctor and Daisy meet Kate Stewart and the unit crew as they deal with the resurgence of the Sea Devils, who recently returned to the Whoniverse in the recent spin-off The War Between the Land and the Sea, and for reasons that will become apparent, that series is completely separate from the story I'm telling here today. So we're going to start off by talking about the Doctor, because after my Season 3 video, I'm sure a lot of you will want an explanation. So Season 3, for those who perhaps didn't watch it for some reason, spoilers, ended with the Doctor managing to defeat the Daleks, but at the cost of his current incarnation. So, after escaping Atlantis with Daisy and Kamelion, the Tardis lands at a safe area in space, and the Doctor regenerates into his new incarnation, who would be dubbed as the 17th Doctor, and I'll be referring to this new Doctor as either the Doctor or 17 during this video. Now let's move on to who I specifically cast as the new incarnation, and that would be Matt Ryan. Now this is a fan cast that over the years I have seen gain more and more traction, and it's an idea that I 100% agree with. If Billie Piper isn't sticking around to play 16, and let's face it, she probably isn't, then Matt is likely the next candidate on my list, and hopefully the BBC's. Whilst he has appeared in the Whoniverse before, playing a one-off villain in an episode of Torchwood, Matt is perhaps best known nowadays among the DC fanbase for his portrayal of John Constantine, and portrayed that role for a single season of his own show before he was introduced into the Arrowverse, where he appeared not only in Season 4 of Arrow, but also went on to appear in both the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover and DC's Legends of Tomorrow. As a side note, he also crossed over with Tom Ellis' Lucifer, but again that was in the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. Anyway, moving on. Regarding how different I think Matt's Doctor would be, I see him as more of a combination between both the 10th and 11th Doctors. I think he'd have more of 10's attitude, whilst also having the 11th Doctor's sense of adventure, if that makes any sense. But that then brings us on to 17's look. Now, I went through a couple of ideas when conceptualising the outfit for this incarnation. My first idea was an ensemble more similar to Rip Hunter and Legends of Tomorrow, however that eventually became the basis for the 16th Doctor's original look. My second option was to go for something more similar to Matt's look as Constantine, which by all accounts I think is relatively simple. And then my third option was actually more inspired by the 8th Doctor's updated look from the Dark Eyes Big Finish series. However, I find they decided on more of a fusion between Dark Eyes and Constantine's look in the Arrowverse to get the final design. I didn't do anything different with Matt's hair in this because I think that style reflects the Tennant Doctor more than anything, and as mentioned, 17 is more of a mix between Tennant and Smith's portrayals. And another thing I'd very quickly like to touch on, with the Doctor changing, the TARDIS will also go through a redesign. Not the exterior, because I like the way that looks, but 16's console room is more on the evolved version of the Capaldi design, mixed in with some design elements of the TV movie, specifically the pillar design. For the 17th Doctor, I'd quite like to lean more into the steampunk aesthetic with his interior, pulling more from the TV movie design whilst integrating some newer ones as well. Now, because we're headed to modern day Earth with the Sea Devils returning, I felt it would make sense to bring back the Unit family for the season in particular. Now, returning of course will be Kate Stewart, who actually runs the place, and alongside her I'm bringing back Shirley Bingham, who I always felt was a great addition to the Unit family in the first place. However, there are two other additions that I'll be making to the Unit fam in this season. These include the return of Petronelle Osgood from Day of the Doctor and Series 9, but alongside her will be the return of Martha Jones. Now, Martha, for those who are unaware, actually does have a history with Unit in the show. After her departure from the Doctor in Last of the Time Lords, Martha actually went on to work for Unit, and briefly worked with Jack and the Torchwood crew during the events of Reset when Owen was killed and subsequently resurrected. After the events of Series 4 with the Sontarans and later the return of the Daleks, Martha eventually leaves Unit to become a freelancer and ends up marrying another companion of the Doctor, Mickey Smith. But for this season, the Unit family will consist of Kate Stewart, Shirley Bingham, the Vlinks, Petronelle Osgood and Martha Jones. So with the Unit family dealt with, that then brings me to my next returning face, the Master. Now in this series the Doctor and the Master have met before in 2049, but at the end of Season 1 he was imprisoned in Unit Tower by the Doctor following his manipulation of the future Earth population. However, the Sea Devils have become too big a threat for just the Doctor and Unit to handle, and it's the Doctor who realises that they need a new hand to play against the villains. So begrudgingly, the Doctor releases the Master from prison, agreeing to form a temporary truce with him and manages to convince Unit that if the Master does help stop the Sea Devils, he'll be granted a Vortex Manipulator which allows him to travel through time, given that his TARDIS was destroyed in Season 1. Now, the reason I decided to bring the Master back is threefold. Number 1, Toby Alexander Smith is a terrific actor, and a brilliant one at that, and I certainly wouldn't want to waste his potential as the character. Number 2, the Master has worked with the Sea Devils before, so it made sense to me at least to bring him back. And finally number 3, the Master and the Doctor have worked together in the past before, albeit in a more reluctant manner. Also in regard to the Master's look for Season 4, I imagine him having a suit more in style with what Tom Ellis wore as Lucifer on the show of the same name, a three-piece suit of a certain colour and also possessing his laser screwdriver as well. I feel like that look would suit the Master very well if Toby was to end up playing him. Now, when I was working on what role he would play in the story, I actually did consider giving the Master his tissue compression eliminator, given that Delgado's Master used it and he was the incarnation that appeared in the Sea Devils. I instead decided to stick with the laser screwdriver because in my mind I imagine that if Toby did end up playing the role, he would be a mix of John Sim and Roger Delgado's versions of the character, possessing Delgado's intellect whilst having more of the style of Sim's Master in that sense. Now, despite this not being the final season, because that will be Season 5, you've all seen a teaser for it, this will be the final season to feature the Master, and I've written him out in a way that leaves the door open for him to return. Okay, we've talked about the Doctor, the Master, the supporting cast and the Unit family, but let's get to the actual villains of Season 4, the Sea Devils. Now, the Sea Devils, for those unaware, first appeared in the 1972 serial of the same name, and fairly recently made their return to the show in the 13th Doctor story Legend of the Sea Devils, which tied them to Madame Ching and the lost treasure for the Flor de la Mar. Now, we've also seen them in The War Between the Land and the Sea, as I mentioned earlier, and originally I wrote the script with the intention to release it before that spin-off came out, but yeah, it didn't age well, so I had to rewrite the script regardless. Now, the role of the Sea Devils actually ties into the events of Season 3, as the Doctor's actions in Atlantis fighting the Daleks leads to the release of a group of more ancient Sea Devils locked away by King Atlan. My original plan starting out was to actually have both Seasons 3 and 4 linked in terms of theme and story, because Atlantis and the Sea Devils in my mind would go well together. However, I knew that I wanted to return to something more familiar to long-term fans, which is why I brought these villains in for the story. But now it's time to talk about the story. So, the events of Season 4 pick up almost directly after the events of Season 3. On modern day Earth we see the consequences of the Doctor's adventure in Atlantis reverberate in the future when the Sea Devils arrive on the land. From there we see the Doctor dealing with the aftermath of his regeneration and then changing into some new attire before becoming aware of the Sea Devils incident. He then heads over to Unit Tower and meets with the unit crew and introduces Daisy to Kate and the team. The end of the episode would see the Doctor come face to face with the Sea Devils. We'd have a bit more exposition in certain places, but yeah. Episode 2 would then pick up here, as the Doctor tries to broker a peace deal between the humans and the Sea Devils. To put things incredibly lightly, it doesn't go well, and the Sea Devils threaten to kill masses of the population if the Doctor or indeed Unit get in their way. The Doctor would then take some time to catch up with Martha, whom he hasn't seen for a long time, at least on screen. Martha then catches the Doctor up on her life since they last saw each other. This moment would expand on Martha's history following the end of the time, where she mentions that her marriage to Mickey and how they have since split up, but are now co-parenting their son, August. Backed into a corner after the Sea Devils start attacking the surface world, the Doctor sees no other option, and so he and Kate decide to meet with the Master, who's had some experience with the Sea Devils in the past. Episode 3 picks up where we left off, with the Doctor and the Master reluctantly working together to save the Earth from a hostile takeover. Another meeting goes south when the Master gets a little trigger happy with the laser screwdriver. The leader of the Sea Devils then offers the Doctor an ultimatum. The humans either find somewhere else to call home, or the Sea Devils will not only declare all-out war, but they'll kill every single human as well. The next episode will then pick up just after the Doctor and the team returns to Unit Tower, as 17 tells Kate to prepare for a possible conflict, which he doesn't want, but there may be no other choice. Kate agrees and then gets her soldiers to rally everyone together. The Doctor, the Master, Martha and Daisy all head to the Bermuda Triangle, where the Sea Devils have all set up a base. The Doctor and Daisy meet again with the Sea Devils, whilst Martha and the Master reluctantly work together to scope out the base. The Doctor apologises for what the Master did, stating that he would never want to cause any harm to the species, and the leader sees through this as some kind of distraction and orders the Doctor and his friend to leave, and reluctantly that's what they do. The Master and Martha are transmatted back to the Tardis and reveal they found a potential weakness to exploit in the base. The Sea Devils have set up a teleport network to travel between checkpoints that they set up in different corners of the ocean, including the Atlantic and the Mariana Trench. If they could set the portal to transport all Sea Devils with no coordinates set, then effectively they would win. Episode 5 would then pick up after this, as the Doctor along with the Master, Martha and Daisy as well as the unit crew gear up to attack the Sea Devils on their turf. Kate reveals that following the events of the spin-off, Unit constructed a fleet of water-based weaponry. The Doctor reluctantly agrees to attack them, as things have escalated to a point where war can't really be prevented here. The episode would end with the Doctor rallying the soldiers and his allies to stand ready. They're going to fight them on the beaches. The finale would be the big final battle. The Doctor, Daisy, Martha and the Master head for the portal, whilst the unit forces fight the Sea Devils. Eventually the Doctor and the Master are successfully able to re-engineer the portal, but realise that someone has to stay behind and keep the connection active or the plan will fail. The Doctor initially offers to stay behind, but the Master steps forward, saying that Earth needs the Doctor and not him. The Doctor, Martha and Daisy escape as the Master manages to send himself and the Sea Devils to an unknown location. In the aftermath, the Doctor quietly mourns the Master, believing that he's dead for real this time, but let's be honest, he never stays dead at all, and eventually the Doctor and Daisy meet up with Unit and bid farewell as they're off to travel the stars once again. Just then, a massive crack opens up in the sky and a giant ship enters through it, shocking the Doctor and everyone in Unit Tower. It's only then that the Doctor recognises the ship, and that's when he realises these are the Time Lords.